They captivate us, they terrify us, and sometimes we even root for them. Villains, the very essence of darkness in storytelling. But what if I told you that the best villains aren't just characters? They are reflections, fragments of human nature buried deep within us all. But what truly makes a great villain? Why do some disturb us while others make us question our own morality? Is it their ideology, their psychology, or is it something even deeper, something primal? In this video, we're peeling back the layers of villainy. We'll explore why the best villains believe they are the heroes, the psychological traits that define them, and the different archetypes of evil, from the tragic to the irredeemable. We'll uncover why we secretly admire them, what they reveal about human nature, and perhaps most unsettling of all, why, under the right circumstances, any of us could become one, because to understand villains is to understand ourselves. Every villain believes they are right. That is the first law of great villainy. A compelling antagonist isn't simply evil for the sake of being evil. They have a cause, a purpose, a belief so strong that, in their mind, they are the true protagonist. Take Thanos, for example. He doesn't see himself as a tyrant, but as a savior. To him, the universe is a fragile ecosystem on the brink of collapse, its resources stretched thin by unchecked population growth. His solution was brutal, yet in his eyes a necessary act of mercy, erasing half of all life to ensure survival for the rest. He doesn't revel in destruction, he mourns it, and that conviction makes him all the more terrifying. What about Walter White? A man who begins as a desperate, dying father trying to secure his family's future. But as his empire grows, his justification shifts. It's no longer about necessity, it's about pride, power, and the thrill of control. He doesn't just break bad, he convinces himself that he deserves to. Then there's Magneto, a man shaped by suffering, raised in the shadow of genocide, and hardened by a world that fears his kind. He doesn't seek destruction for its own sake. He believes mutants must strike first or risk being victims yet again. To him, the war against humanity isn't cruelty, it's survival. This is what makes villains unsettling. They don't wake up one morning and decide to be evil. They evolve, they justify, they believe. And in the end, the only real difference between a villain and a hero is perspective. Because when conviction turns into obsession, when justification turns into necessity, how thin is the line between righteousness and ruin? There's a science to villainy. Psychologists have studied what drives people toward darkness, and three traits stand out above all: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, also known as the dark triad. Narcissism is the belief that they are superior, destined for greatness, above the rules that govern ordinary people. Machiavellianism is the ability to manipulate, deceive, and use others as pawns in their grand visions. Psychopathy is a lack of empathy, a remorseless mind, and the absence of guilt. Some villains possess all three. Like the Joker, a man who manipulates, deceives, and has no empathy for human suffering. Others may only have one or two. Light Yagami, for instance, starts as a high school student who wants justice but falls victim to his own narcissism and God complex. In the real world, these traits are not just in fictional villains, but in CEOs, dictators, and even people we meet every day. The truth is, villainy isn't an identity, it's a spectrum, and every human at some level has a shadow self. Not all villains are the same. Some seek vengeance, others crave power, and some simply wish to watch the world burn. But while their motives differ, each villain falls into a pattern, a category of darkness that reveals something about the human mind. The tragic villain. They weren't always this way. Once they had hope. They had a chance to walk a different path. But something, betrayal, loss, suffering, pushed them past the point of return. Anakin Skywalker was once a Jedi, a hero meant to bring balance to the Force. But fear of loss consumed him, twisting his love into obsession, his anger into hatred. In trying to prevent pain, he became its greatest source, transforming into Darth Vader, a symbol of terror and destruction. The tragic villain reminds us how fragile the line is between good and evil, how, under the right circumstances, even the best of us can fall. The anti-villain. Unlike others, the anti-villain has a cause, one that might even seem just, but their methods? Ruthless. Their morality? Warped by necessity. Take Killmonger. He fights against oppression, a noble cause that demands change. But instead of leading a revolution, he seeks domination. Instead of breaking chains, he tightens them around others. Had he chosen a different path? Could he have been the hero? Or was his downfall inevitable? The anti-villain forces us to ask, when does justice turn into vengeance? When do noble intentions become monstrous? The pure psychopath. Then there are those who have no cause, no ideology, no conscience. They don't seek power or justice. They exist purely for destruction. The Joker doesn't want money, revenge, or control. He wants chaos. He thrives in it. Anton Chigurh, with his lifeless stare and coin flip fate, operates on nothing but cold, mechanical logic. There is no empathy, no remorse, nothing to reason with. These villains unsettle us because they remind us of the unpredictable, of the things that cannot be controlled or understood. And deep down, that terrifies us. The corrupt leader. Power doesn't just reveal who we are, it changes us. A leader, once righteous, slowly begins to justify their worst impulses. At first, they silence dissent to protect order. Then, they eliminate threats to ensure stability. Before long, they have become the very thing they once fought against. This is the villain who mirrors history itself. The rise of dictators, the fall of once idealistic rulers, proof that corruption is not always born from malice, but from the slow erosion of morality in the face of power. Each villain is a different kind of warning. The tragic villain shows us how easy it is to lose ourselves. The anti-villain reveals the danger of unchecked conviction. The psychopath reminds us that some evil has no reason at all. And the corrupt leader? They teach us that power doesn't always destroy people, it just exposes who they were all along. So, if every villain represents a lesson, what does that say about the ones we fear most? Why do we love villains? If villains are meant to be feared, why do we love them? Why do people resonate with them more than heroes? The answer is simple. Villains are often free. Heroes follow rules. They restrain themselves. They have a moral code. But villains? They act on impulse, on raw desire. They take what they want. They say what they want. They do what they want. And deep down, we all have that urge to break free from rules, from expectations, from limitations. Villains also remind us of our own struggles. Who hasn't felt anger? Who hasn't wanted revenge? Who hasn't wished they could take control of their life without consequences? That's why we love them. They show us what happens when we unleash our darkest impulses, and sometimes it's intoxicating. What villains teach us about ourselves? Villains are not just characters. They are mirrors. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths. How much does pain change a person? How far would you go to achieve your goals? What would it take to push you to the edge? They teach us that morality is fragile, that good people can fall, that in the right circumstances, anyone can become a villain, including us. But perhaps the most valuable lesson villains teach us is recognizing the darkness within us so we may control it. Because in the end, we all have a shadow. The question is, do you let it consume you or do you master it? Villains are not just characters in movies, comics, and books. They are cautionary tales. Warnings of what happens when ambition turns to greed, when pain turns to revenge, when power turns to corruption. So the next time you watch a great villain, don't just fear them. Study them. Understand them. Because the deeper you go into their psychology, the more you'll understand your own.